Hey friends, this is Dean Sarah from the Cathedral of All Souls, and we just are welcoming you today as we take a look at some stories of some women around the diocese. The history here in Western North Carolina is rich. We have our own wonderful stories at the Cathedral of incredible women leaders, and I'm so grateful that we get a chance to share these stories together. Thank you for being with us today, whether you're online or in person, and let's make the path even better for women coming after us.
I've had a sense of calling since I was really little.
It just seemed like the only job I could think that I wanted to do was to be a priest.
I think from a pretty early age have a lot of curiosity about big questions.
Well, I had a varied, windy road journey to priesthood.
Ibba Tappy was one of the chaplains when I was a camper in the late 70s. And I didn't know it at the time, but she was the first woman ordained as a priest. I don't know, there's something about the spirit of Camp Henry that just wells up the spirit, and I felt that. A senior year in college, I really felt this call to be a priest. So I went to Bishop Weinauer and talked to him about my call that I felt. And he said, well, you need to live life a little bit longer. And I decided to pursue a degree in history. So I moved to Louisiana to get my master's in history. Just the little bit of time I got to leading the undergraduates, that's where my passion was. And we went and talked to the Bishop of Louisiana. And he said, well, you're not from here, you're from North Carolina. So I came back to the Diocese of Western North Carolina. By this time, Bishop Johnson was the bishop, and he didn't know me, didn't know I'd lived in the diocese all these years. And he said, well, you're not from here, you're from Louisiana. If you want to do the discernment process here, you need to move back to North Carolina, join a parish, be in a parish for 4 years, and then you can start the process. After those two beginning no's, then the process was very easy for me. And I was the fourth woman ordained in the Diocese of Louisiana, even though women had been ordained for a long time. It was still new down there, and they weren't quite sure what they thought about it, but they ordained me.
I was the first female acolyte at my church in 1973. As soon as I got to the big church, I asked if I could carry the cross. And I was accepted as an acolyte 2 weeks later after they had much discussion. I had never saw a female priest until 2003. And even though I've been Episcopalian for a long time. Because I grew up in Philadelphia, I did know about the Philadelphia 11. I remember seeing that picture and just being fascinated by it. And so the church that I started off with was originally predominantly white. And then by the time I was graduating from high school, it was about 70% black. And so you saw the dynamics change. You saw the resources change. When your career is going one way and you have family, you tend to put your idea of being a priest on a back burner. And then I ended up in 2013 at St. Mark's in Gastonia. I was asked by Father Sean if I'd ever considered ministry, to be a priest. When Father Sean asked me that was really the beginning of what I felt like I was being supported in my ministry, especially when I started seminary at 55 years old. And having a conversation with Bishop Jose and Canon Augusta, I was blessed to have four African-American seminarians with me at Seminary Southwest. There's something to be a black female too as well. As far as the support from the church here, I couldn't ask for a better diocese.
One of the really interesting things for me going to seminary at Episcopal Divinity School was that I was there with many women who were in their 60s, even 70s or late 50s, who had grown up with a very clear desire to serve as priests in the church and couldn't. And that was a real gift for me because I grew up in third wave feminism, and so I did not have to struggle for the right to be a priest. One of the downsides of that is that you can be out of touch with the pain and the sacrifices of women and men, others who've gone before. I grew up with very positive experiences in the church. Never had the sense that women couldn't be ordained leaders, but I also didn't see many women. I can't think of any women pastors. I think it really enlarged my compassion and understanding for my older sisters who were pursuing the priesthood.
I have a lot of family members actually who are ministers, and all of them men. and I'm the only woman in my family who is ordained, though one of my great aunts was a theologian. So I always had a sense that I was called to do something or be something. I figured it would be a nun, but I was really confused by that because I was Mennonite. I grew up Mennonite, and wasn't sure how it would work to be a nun. I spent my whole life being like, there is no way. There's no way. I am too short. I'm a woman. I'm too scatterbrained. I'm too goofy. Like, none of these things, like all of these things exclude me. I never saw a woman in the pulpit until I was probably 14 or 15. And that was sort of a game changer for me. And she preached a lot about Mary, which I thought was interesting. When I was baptized, her partner Mickey, she gave me the Oxford annotated edition of the Bible. It was a real vote of confidence. You know, I see you, and I know that you are going to live a life where you wrestle with this text.
Growing up, though I never heard women clergy preached against, I never actually saw one until I moved to New York City and was in the Diocese of New York. And it was there that I found that I was being called by God to become a priest. Thankfully, there were women who were role models for me there. And even with that, I was still the first woman sent to seminary by the church that I was a part of there. And obviously, the Holy Spirit was not only working on me, but also working on the rector, who had previously been on record as not being in support of women's ordination. So obviously, the Spirit works as she will. And barriers are broken when you don't even know that you're going to be part of it. I am so just honored to be the first female dean at the Cathedral of All Souls. There have been wonderful, wonderful female clergy, and of course, many, many generations of fantastic female leadership.
I've had a couple people say that they've been drawn to the church because they're drawn to strong female leadership. And then one woman added, and I'm drawn to a community where strong female leadership is supported by men.
One of the men who had been resistant after I'd been there about 10 years, he said, you know, I didn't really think a woman could do this job, and you do a great job, and I love you, and I'm so glad you're my priest. And so that felt really affirming. I didn't know he was one of those who didn't want me because he'd never acted that way.
I had folks call me Lil Bit for a little while. That was my nickname. I was like, yes, I'm short, but I don't think you would call a male priest Lil Bit. And they said, oh, you know what? No, it's bishop in training. Bishop in training, BIT.
When we say we're welcoming, we want to show that we are, and by that means that everyone has the same opportunity to do something, and they don't, I call it, self-select themselves out of it. They say, oh, I can't do it because I don't see anyone that's doing it. Not everybody takes that first step. Somebody has to be first.
So thrilled at the Cathedral of All Souls to have on our staff Deacon Glenda McDowell, who was the first Black woman ordained in this diocese and has been serving at the cathedral for a wonderful number of years. Glenda broke so many barriers, as so many do, but she broke barriers through this church, went through so much to be able to serve. And that's when you know someone is called, when they are willing to go through every barrier to get to serve others.
You know, when you read the Bible with the lens of who's showing up in the stories, you know, of course, some of these stories, it was more a patriarchal culture, a patriarchal time, but it's remarkable to me how often women show up, how often women are the agents of change, are the messengers of God's steadfast love.
I think that just the more work we do to open up those pathways and to let God teach us how to love each other and break down the barriers that sort of keep us protected from those who are different from us, I think we'll be on the right track.
The hope, of course, is that as we look at the history of the women whose lives and whose shoulders we stand on, that we can then emulate them in our lives, because there are women, there are young women, there are girls who need a hand up. and they are going to be the ones to carry us into the future.